The Trump administration is reportedly considering fast-tracking the vaccine being developed by Oxford University and Astrazeneca for use in the U.S. ahead of the presidential election. This after the FDA granted emergency authorization use to convalescent plasma to treat COVID-19 patients. For more, let's bring in Matt Herper of Stat News. Matt, thank you for joining us. Just first on the treatment news, the convalescent plasma. What's the reaction from the medical experts, the doctors that you guys talk to? How big of a deal is this, and does it expand coverage?
It's not clear how much it expands coverage. It does expand coverage some. The convalescent plasma was actually available in the study that generated this data, which is called an expanded access program. There are 35,000 people in that study. The question is, there's a lot of people are still very unsure whether or not there's evidence that it is effective.
I guess if you're a patient that's hospitalized with COVID-19 or God forbid in the ICU, you want anything that could possibly work. And if there's enough evidence to show that this does, why not go ahead with this emergency use authorization? We need more of this, don't we?
The experience with hydroxychloroquine is a good reason to be careful about that. Whatever you think about hydroxychloroquine, in the indication we used it in patients who were in the hospital, there are now several trials showing that there was no benefit and there may have been harm. So that's not always true. As Robert Califf, the former FDA commissioner, likes to say that, you know, if you put all the studies that have been run in anything together, you might be better off getting placebo than drug. It's not always true that something is better than nothing.
You know, Matt, it's Brian Sullivan. Listen, we've heard that a vaccine may be only 40 to 50% effective, and maybe only 40, 50% of the people will take it or be able to get it. That's not optimistic long term. We're going to kind of have to power our way through this. Is there any indication, and I'm referencing a study from Germany about 2 months ago, that we are seeing T-cell and antibody response naturally in human beings just by having some small viral load or a small exposure to the coronavirus? Is there any indication that we are self-immunizing at all?
I don't understand why you'd go for self-immunization over vaccines. Look, there are a lot of vaccines in development. There's a tendency of the market and of people watching to focus on one. But really, I see you have them up there: Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Sanofi, AstraZeneca, Novavax. And then there are more after that. I wouldn't bet on the way the FDA has set the bar is if a vaccine has proved itself to be better than 30% efficacy, which gets you to about, it'll be showing 50% efficacy, but you know it's better than 30%. That's what they've said they will approve. That's going to be better than that immunity that you're talking about.
What about this Financial Times report, Matt, that the U.S., that the Trump administration is looking at fast-tracking the vaccine? What does your reporting show? As people do wonder if corners are being cut from a safety perspective with political pressure around the election to get this vaccine out.
There are two separate things. I've heard from a lot of doctors who are very worried that corners will be cut. On the other hand, just saying that you're going to approve the AstraZeneca vaccine based on the earlier studies that are already ongoing doesn't mean that. It could mean that those studies turn out really well. There's the one in the UK. The problem there is there's not a lot of coronavirus. There's the one in Brazil, where there's a lot of coronavirus, but the study is smaller. It's possible that there will be data from those studies that could warrant at least some expanded access, which again doesn't have to be for everybody. But really, the question is whether the FDA gets an opportunity to weigh that evidence properly and to abide by the standards it's already set.
Yeah, but Matt, I want to go back to your previous point where I asked you about natural immunity. I'm a little bit confused by your comment, because the reality is if half the country can't get it or won't take it and it's only 30 to 50% effective, we look at 1968, the forgotten pandemic, twice as deadly to those under 65 as COVID so far has been. It still exists in some form today, and there's been some talk that maybe we're a little more resistant against COVID because of these prior influenzas, even though I understand this is different than just the flu. Why would a vaccine be better than us doing what we have done over centuries?
Well, that's why we have vaccines. All the vaccines we use, a lot of them are, the immunity from a vaccine can be better than the immunity you mount yourself. HPV is a really good example there. So I wouldn't have, and in order to get the immunity from other coronaviruses, T cells and killer T cells, those are things that some of the vaccines are hoping they're going to generate. That's one of the ideas behind the Astrazeneca vaccine. Pfizer's been hopeful about their T cell data. Antibodies are the main thing that people are looking at, that they're hoping will be a correlative immunity, as they are with flu shots. But it's a lot to hope. It's one thing to hope that immunity exists and is going to kick in and is going to help us. And gosh, I do. And I don't know. But vaccines are, I wouldn't assume that would be the same thing as a vaccine, which is why we're in such a hurry to develop one.